Deacon? Dude, let me tell you, I got the vaccine yesterday, and holy shit, did I have a fever last night. I had the chills, top to bottom. Fuck, got me good. Messian Mode 3. Those aren't real modes, man. Those are modes for weirdos. Kinky classical nerds. More or less, still got the chills a little bit, but not gonna stop me anymore. But yeah, I woke up at like 4 a.m. like, what the fuck? It hit fucking hard, man. We're going to talk about playing jazz blues today, because I want to play some jazz blues, and was listening to some Clifford Brown. Jesus Christ, is he good? Let's do jazz blues slow. Cool. I did the Moderna. Last night was a rough night. How am I feeling? I'm feeling okay. Been worse, been better. Let's see. Second angle. Yeah, I actually got a badass camera right here. It's called a Sony Alpha 6400 with a badass lens, and this week I'll get it up and running, but I still need a cam link card that talks from the I just found out I need it. And yeah, I mean, I can give you a taste of what it will look like. Check this out. It's pretty rad. But yeah, I still need a cam link to make the picture super smooth. But let me see. Yeah, it'll open in a minute. Anyway, you guys want to talk about some blues? You want to learn some blues licks? What's your take on modeling amps? Well, you know, it's like fake tits. It's great from a distance, but when you start playing with them, it's not like the real thing. Yeah, that camera is pretty amazing. It's not up and running yet, but here, let me show you what it will look like. I can kind of do a thing. Let's see, window capture. All right. Hold up. This is, well, let me get the f-stop right. It's pretty badass. It's pretty badass. See that blurry background? Right? So, but it's not running as smoothly as I would like it. But come on, that's an improvement, right? All right, I'm taking it off though. Goodbye. Cool. I can get one for you. Just gotta come play in Florida. All right, I can do it. Can you make Markovich sing? Sure. How to make blues not boring is my curse, sort of. Well, let's talk about that. Yeah, I need to. As soon as I get this cam link thing, it's gonna be badass. So yeah, let's talk about this F blues. I think there are a few elements, things you really want to hit. Let me get rid of some of this reverb. I'm not gonna be singing. Whoa. That is the opposite of getting rid of it. Okay, there we go. All right. Cool. All right. So yeah, like let's go over the chords for a blues in F. So a blues in F looks like this. It goes from the 1 chord to the 4 chord to a B flat, back to the 1 chord, and then a 2/5 to the 4 chord. So the first 4 measures like 1, right? 4. So this is kind of like the first important part in playing a jazz blues is what do you do in measure 2? There's a whole element when you're the curse of starting to play jazz is that since you're figuring out what modes or arpeggios go on each thing in the music, you could be really tempted to not really play over bar lines, or when you do it, just really be too surgical with how you're playing. But there's another thing happening, which is harmonic rhythm, meaning when you're phrasing over a form, when you're playing solos over chord changes, there's not just what the chords are, but where they are in the form. And measure 1 and 3 tend to be the strong places that we just hear in a form. And measure 2 and 4 tend to be weaker places. So you can really almost ignore information on measure 2 and 4. Not really ignore it, but play through it to kind of create alternative cadences to get to measure 3 and 1. So in a 12-bar blues, right, if you think about it as 4 lines of 4 measures each, measure 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So the first chord is on measure 1, the second chord's on measure 2, right? So you can think about that as kind of a cadence, a type of cadence that leads you back to measure 1. Cadence meaning it's like, tension and release, that's where you would put the tension. Yeah, kind of a passing zone. That's right. So if you just want, there's a lot of ways that you could play a cadence that moves into 1. That's where it's going, right? So think about it like arrival points and kind of departure points. So if I think about all the measure 1s of each line of a blues, that's sort of my first set of arrival points, and measure 3 is the second set of arrival points, right? And you can throw cadences in that just go there by an alternative route. So what do I mean by that? Here's the measure 1, 2, and 3. F, B flat, back to F. So I kind of played the tonic, moved away from the tonic, and came back to the tonic. So I can use that kind of cadence. That's in music theory, they call that a plagal cadence. When you go to the 4 chord back to the 1, that's fine. And that's just, I'm playing the mixolydian on the F, and then like literally the mixolydian on the B flat. And that's cool. Something that a lot of guys do is they just ignore what's going on in measure 2, that B flat, or they put some other thing that goes back to F, right? So a C7 moves back to F as well. So if I just go F, C7, F. And you could really do that, right? Play whatever fits that C7. So check this out. So I'm going to play mixolydian on F, and then C altered. So even though the chord was a B flat there, I played, I imagine it was a C Hendrix chord, right? Superimpose that sound. But since I have the control to do it in a particular place in the form over that chord, and that's going to the same place, it's given me that sound of like, what's he doing? Here's another option. You can play like a G flat 7, like just F, G flat, right? That has also kind of a sound to it. So, but I'm just sidestepping in a particular place to get that sound. I could play a 2/5 of that G flat, meaning D flat minor to G flat 7. That sounds like this. Like so that's another option. You could play a 4 minor chord. Some people do that on the 4 chord. That has a sound too, right? Right. That's I played a B flat minor. So that's another cool thing you can superimpose. Then when you ask yourself what's happening next, right, between measure 3 and measure 5. Measure 3 goes back to that F chord. Measure 4 is whatever, and then measure 5 is the 4 chord. So it's some sound that leads you to the 4 chord. Watching from Burma. Cool. Viva la resistance, I guess. Why does the 2/5 over the flat 2 work? Well, the 5 chord, C Hendrix chord, comes from C altered. There's a thing called tritone substitutions where it's basically the same chord as a G flat 7, right? G flat Lydian dominant, same melodic minor scale. They're both tied together by using a D melodic minor scale. The sound of a 2/5 is just kind of a nice way to get to that sound. So like. Now, what does it mean that it works? it's it's if you're gonna like slow it down and measure each note you're playing against the bass note, you're gonna run into some pretty chromatic stuff. The idea though is that, and that's how a lot of people play and really post bop, is that if things are if you're playing a legit cadence and you end up in the same place, that's somehow a level of decadent of dissonance that's tucked in appropriately. Make sense? Um, so B is the tritone substitution of the F7. That's right, but we're talking about the tritone substitution of the five chord of that F7, right? Because you now when you're moving to that B flat, the four chord, then that's where you would use some sort of F7 as the cadence that leads there, and you can use a B flat 7 to get there. So that's really what you could do in measure 4 of a blues, right? So measure 4, or yeah, measure 3, 4, 5 sound like 1, and then I can add that relative 2 chord like. So did you eat eggs and salad today? Get your strength up? No, I had a smoothie. Maybe that explains it. Watching from Brisbane. Hey, thank you, mate. I love you guys. You all are the coolest there in Down Under land. Koalas, kangaroos, and mates. Sounds like the life. Um, yeah, so that's a nice option. Now, really, the place where people eat shit on a blues and in rhythm changes is measure 6, and it's the same chord that makes them. So there are a few things that people do in measure 6 of a blues. Now, measure 6 just is a leads you back to 1, right? Measure 7, you're playing the 1 chord. For those of you guys who do not know a 12 bar blues, this probably would be a confusing thing. C7 is the 5 of F, and G flat altered is the tritone of C7. That's correct, Jose. Well, no, C altered is the 5 of F, and it's G flat Lydian dominant, right? Altered is the name of a mode. Any altered tonality has a Lydian dominant tonality from the same scale, a tritone away. That's what altered. It's just 2 chords and 2 tonalities inside the same scale. Now, the place where people eat shit on a blues, it's this gospel type cadence, right? It's going from the 4 chord to the sharp 4 diminished to 1 with 5 in the bass, right? B flat, B diminished to 1. That sound. And you can play it, obviously. Now, in a blues, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, from the top. So I think what's really happening when you're thinking about that sharp 4 diminished is a lot of people just are not hearing what notes sound in on it, right? What are the inside sounds on that B diminished? Because it's just hard to visualize, and maybe you're not used to really playing on it. But the first thing is that it leads to the 1 chord, so you could always ignore it and play some other sound that leads to the 1 chord, like C altered, right? So, right, that is just playing C altered going to F. You don't really have to go there. So, thanks, Dennis. Yeah, that is the church sound, right? Using those diminished chords to climb. But knowing what to play on them. Now, if you do want to get into that sound, that's really something you need to practice. So a great practice would just be setting a loop on your looper of going B flat, B diminished, F with C in the bass. Something like that. Now, B flat is B flat Mixolydian. Now, hear this sound. That's diminished. That's whole half diminished. But the trick is to be able to actually isolate the sounds, the notes that sound groovy on it, that sound like they're really working. And that might be the trick, right? So, first of all, most people play blues on it. So a lot of those notes in Mixolydian fit. This, right? Here's... So this chunk of, like, if you just think about what that is in the key, the root, the 2, and flat 3 of the key, not on the B flat diminished, are really kind of the notes that most people so those are key notes, but let's see what they are on that B diminished, right? So that first one, the root of the key is that flatted 5 of the B diminished. Then you have this note, right? That's the flat 6. And here's the double flatted 7. Right? Now, another note that's in the scale is the major 7. And that's not a great sound, right? That's okay, you know. The root of that B, that's really okay. And here you get to the note that really sounds That the 2, even though it's in the scale, it totally is in the tonality. That's sort of the hacky sound you want to try to not land on too hard, right? It's sort of an avoid note on that diminished chord. It just doesn't sound great. Right? If you're moving stuff, it's okay. But that sound, the flatted 3rd of the diminished, sounds great, right? But yeah, it's just that 2 that's a little bit odd, right? Now, another thing about bebop blues is that when you get to measure 7, when you're listening to Charlie Parker, a lot of times that's a major 7 on measure 7, not a dominant. So you really hear the sound of either like an A minor arpeggio or just leaning into that major 7 of the F, right? So check this out. Like if I'm going from like... That's a lot of those lines are just A minor on the F. And then on the D7, which is the next measure, the chord that leads you to the G minor, the flat 9 of that D. That's the head of Billy's bounce. Right? So, again. So if I'm just running on that B, right, with the notes that fit. So it's the root, 2, which is kind of an avoid note, flat 3, natural 4. Hearing that natural 4 too, right? To that flatted 5th, right? Another big thing is learning how to use the minor blues scale over the last 4 measures. That's really where people like Oscar Peterson, George Benson, all those dudes just shine, right? So when you get Oh, we're not there yet. Let's just talk about measure 8 leading to measure 9. So measure 8 of the blues is that D7 that leads you to the G minor, the 5 of 2. So you can play altered there, resolving to the G minor, or harmonic minor 5 below, right? G harmonic minor on the D7. That's the sound. So coming from an F major 7 into that G harmonic minor sounds like this. So, very nice sound, right? Is the Sublime guitarist good? I honestly don't know. I don't know anything about him. So now 2-5-1. Now in the 2-5-1, you could play two diatonic, two Dorian to Mixolydian sounds a little bit. It's okay, but it doesn't really scream blues. I think what people do a lot of the time is they play the minor blues scale of the key, meaning F minor blues with the blue note, over the 2-5-1. So if I just map it out here, right? F minor pentatonic with the blue note, the flatted fifth, right? What I really want to do is really be able to play a bass line that goes G, C, F, right? That's 2-5-1. Or maybe even G, C, F, D, G, C. That's the last four measures. 2, 5, 1, 6, 2, 5, right? 2, 5, 1, 6, 2, 5, G, C, F, D7, G minor 7, C7. Now, on top, I want to just improvise using that F minor pentatonic over those sounds. That gives me really weird intervals. Right, so... So that was F minor pentatonic over that thing. Now I can play F major pentatonic too with its blue note. So here's F major pentatonic. So starting from F, maybe here it would look like root 2, sharp 2 is the blue note 3, right? And let's stay in this position, so I'll just find the notes under. So here's the 6 and here's the 5, right? That's F major pentatonic. Or, right? Or D minor pentatonic. That's the same thing. But with that same bass line, right? Minor. Maybe into major. Now, that's the shit. So if I'm playing pretty surgical throughout the entire form, and then I get to that point in the blues, and I'm playing more pentatonic in the key, but with control. Control doesn't mean that's a sharp 4, that's a flat, that's a flat 6. Control means that when you hear the bass note, you can go, you hear that device on that bass note. Right? In music, that's kind of the humming logic of it becomes available to you. Alright. So yeah. Here's altered on that. 2-5. shit. Thank you, I camp. I'm okay though. Okay, the concept over the changes over Blues for Alice over the first and fourth bar is a cool topic. So yeah, what's happening in songs like Blues for Alice is kind of the step further in harmonic density. So what you would do to apply that kind of thing is just cram the four measures, the first four measures, full of two fives that lead you to that same exact spot, to that four chord, in our case, the B flat 7. So in Blues for Alice, Charlie Parker is playing F 6, 9, or major 7, whatever. Then E minor, A7, D minor, G7, C minor, F7. So it's three sets of two fives that are fourths apart, right? And leads exactly, using a normal cadence to B flat. So when you do that, right, you got to think about what those dominant chords mean in the key. So A7 in the key of F is 5 of 6. It's supposed to lead you to D minor, and it does. G7 is 5 of 5, and F7 is 5 of 4. And the cool thing about it is, everything is super voice led, and you're just using this chain of dominant chords that lead from one to the other. The harmonic choices would be, if you want just a simple rule for what to play over what on secondary dominants, the ones that lead to minor chords get harmonic minor 5 below. The ones that lead to major chords get mixolydian. So 5 of 2, 5 of 3, 5 of 6 in a key lead to 2 minor, 3 minor, and 6 minor, so they get the harmonic minor ones. And 5 of 1, which is the primary dominant, 5 of 4, and 5 of 5 lead to major chords, diatonic chords, and they get mixolydian. And that has a sound, right? It goes like F major 7, Ionian on the F. And then that E minor to A7 is D harmonic minor. Then D minor to G7 is G mixolydian. C minor to F is F mixolydian. So applying Blues for Alice changes on a simple blues kind of gives you these nooks and crannies to swim around harmonically on these chords. So again, it's a little bit out, but it makes sense in the flow of things because one thing leads to the other really smoothly. So again. So that kind of gave me a chain of chords to drive by, right? Now, it sounded a little odd because especially in those tempos, you could really hear how it's clashing with the harmony. But again, a lot of that sound has that outside. You just think about it like this. You're creating controlled motion through 4 bars. You're just decorating that space to lead you to a point B that's way down the line, right? You're trying to get there. You're getting there. You're getting to measure 5 by cramming it full of chords, right? So F. So when you actually have the changes there, can you play Outside in Pat Metheny style? I don't know. Can I? I can try. Does it sound like Pat Metheny? Probably not really, but you know, faking it. Faking it. Blues for Alice. So Blues for Alice, here it is. Wow, that's a terrible backing track. We're gonna try a different one. Yep. So yeah, it's kind of quick. So making the changes again, those kind of changes in that tempo make more sense because you could just really hear the harmony moving seamless. good trick. Sounds great. Thank you for sharing the knowledge. You're welcome. A good trick. I don't know who Marshall Harrison is, but sounds cool. Thanks, Kim. When you have quick 2/5s that are diatonic, like measure 3 and 4 of Blues for Alice, what Wes Montgomery and people like that do is they take a diatonic arpeggio that works on both and has a sound and play that throughout. So really, like, that song goes like right? So that part where it goes D minor, G7, F, C minor, F7. It's a lot. First of all, if you think about those 2/5s, you're going to play a lot of really boxy shit, right? And that might be if you're really kind of starting out with this jazz adventure, where you want to be. I mean, that's if you don't know how to play through 2/5s, then that's a good thing to do. But after you can play through them, that sound becomes very taxing. So again, I'm not saying you shouldn't learn how to do it. Absolutely, you should learn how to do it. But if you're at this place where you know how to do it and you're like, okay, how do I just not do that, right? Because there's always this sweet spot of, I still want to improvise. I still want to be driving this car. I don't want to just apply licks, right? So if I have F major, and I can play a lot of, then that first set of 2/5s, that E minor, E half diminished to A7, that's really D harmonic minor, right? So if you just arpeggiate after that, go, that sound will be very repetitive. Especially because it's also two of them and they're the same tonality. So what Wes Montgomery does, if you see like a 2/5 that goes D minor, G7, that's from the key of C. He'll take the 4 chord in that key and arpeggiate that. So the 4 chord in the key of C is F major 7. So F major on the D minor sounds like this, and on the G7 sounds like this. It's the same. And maybe play patterns in that. So now I have a different set of changes, but also notice what's happening. I played over F major 7 for the first measure. Now it's a 2/5 to D minor, and when I get to D minor, I'm back to that F major 7, right? So check this out, because that F major 7 works. And now that second set of 2/5s, C minor, F7, I'm playing an E flat major 7, which is just the same thing, a step down. Now it's going to go from this sound, like, right? So again, just like in the other blues, I sidestepped in measure 2 to kind of get back to measure 1. Let's see. All the stuff from the 1/4 harmonically function the same as the 5/1. It doesn't function the same harmonically, but it's in a place in the form that behaves similarly. So you can get away with it. Meaning, and now again, depends on the level of dissonance that your music has, right? So Nathan, like, I know a lot of the people who there's this one guy who teaches like George Benson style guitars. Like, this is what they're thinking. If you measure the notes slowly on you're going to create a lot of clashing if you think about it that way. But if that's the style you like, then that's what they do. You know what I mean? That's the tool. So, like, and that's the example I gave earlier. If you have a 1/4/1, it's a lot like a 1/5. Now, obviously, that's not the same sound on the 4 chord, but if chorus after chorus after chorus, you're kind of swimming inside an identical version of the harmony without kind of playing on a slightly different architecturally on an architecturally different version of the form, then you're going to do a lot of the same shit, because the way we play lines is we move them through chords. And if we just imagine the same exact version of the chords, chorus after chorus, then things get pretty one-dimensional, right? So yeah, it's totally fine to just go, right, on the 1-4-1 and just play it as if it's a 1-5-1. What matters more is when, really which part of the 4-bar phrase you're playing on. You want to really lean into the weaker places in the form, and even that is not a rule set in stone. There's so many ways to play well. The problem is that there's exponentially more ways to play shitty. Just because there's a lot of ways to do something good doesn't mean it's easy, because there's always 20 times the ways to do it, like piss poor job, Ima, my mom's watching. Manishma. All right. But yeah, let's get back to like a blues and something, maybe B flat. Yeah, slow blues and B flat. All right. Another thing that's super helpful, how do you approach flat 7 sharp 11 chords? So that's an interesting topic. So that's Lydian dominant, right? That sound, the fourth mode of melodic minor. That has there are two versions of how that happens in music. One of them is when you have any kind of non-functioning dominant chord, just a dominant chord that's not a part of a cadence. That's always the mode it gets. When it's a sub 5, it's always the mode it gets. Or you can use it over blues, which is what I'm playing right now. So like you can play the Lydian dominant of the 1 and the 4 chord, and that's a great sound. So in B flat blues, if I just play F melodic minor on the 1 chord, which gives me B flat Lydian dominant, that's just a nice sound, right? I mean, that's all the notes sound great. It has that, and then E flat. So I played F melodic minor on the B flat, and then the 4 chord E flat I played B flat melodic minor on. don't say anything incriminating the neighbors can hear. Your neighbors or mine? All right. So that's one way of doing it. Something I should have mentioned about that E, the sharp 4 diminished chord. Something you could always do is play. If it's related to any. Okay. When you're looking at diminished scale harmony, which is a very confusing topic on guitar, there are two things that, I'll talk about that last sound. And you liked it, Deacon. I remember last time I showed it in a different context, in the context of Stella by Starlight, same chord. It's always that chord. That's the chord that fucks people up in jazz, that people really do a terrible job matching a mode to. So if I take a look at all the diminished chords that run out of a single diminished chord. So if, let's say, I'm playing a B flat diminished, most people have put together that I could play those four and they're inversions of each other. Now, in diminished scale harmony, something you could do, right, to just access or, simplify what it is really use an approach note for every note inside that diminished structure. Because in truth, diminished chords, like if I take a look at D flat diminished, if I want that to find all the tensions that fit on that diminished chord, they're all right here, a half step below. Meaning, let's say that this is the root, right? D flat is the root. Or actually, let's look at E diminished. Let's say E is the root. Then a major 7 lives right under the root. Right? Here's that flatted 5th. A natural 4th is right under that one. Double flatted 7. I have a flatted 6 right under it. And that minor 3rd has a natural 2 under it. So now, check this out. If I just flatten any one of these notes, I get 4 dominant chords, meaning E diminished, if I take the root a half step down, it's an E flat 7. If I take the flatted 5th a half step down, that's an A7, right? Second inversion. If I take the double flatted 7 a half step down, that's a C7, first inversion. And if I take that flatted 3rd a half step down, that's a G flat 3rd inversion. So there's a relationship inside that diminished scale, not only between, in our case, B flat diminished, D flat diminished, E diminished, and G diminished, but also between A7, C7, E flat 7, and G flat 7. So they all are present inside that same diminished scale, half whole diminished. 4 dominant chords and 4 diminished chords. But they don't all sound good in the context of how we're going to use that. Is chord theory necessary to play well? Well, if you're completely lost in what I'm saying and you want to play more like me, then probably it won't hurt. Now, what I'm trying to say is that on that E flat diminished, they're not all equal. Meaning, if I want to play a C7 on it, right, instead of it, just substitute it, it's not going to sound right, right? So if I'm going like blues, right? And here. It's true that theoretically it's there, but it didn't work. So just because something is the same on paper doesn't mean that it works the same. So the one dominant chord that really sounds killer is A7, right? That's the one that's really a half step below the root of the key. Now on that E half diminished, on the E fully diminished, to play an A7 is a great sound because it leads me back to that one chord in a half step motion. So you could really think about that measure 6 of the blues as just a dominant chord half step under. And this is something Django does all the time when you look at songs like See You in My Dreams, right? See you in my dreams. And here, do, do, ba, da, do. That going a half step down and back up. That side step. Now, if you analyze what that chord is, it's the 5 of 3 of the key. But it doesn't behave like a 5 of 3. It's just a piece of that diminished. It's really one diminished. With that sound, it's a really, really nice sound to just take a side step into. So practicing that, just learn how to move a dominant chord and then a dominant chord a half step down, right? And you can always use that in that spot in the blues, in that gospel climb. So I'll tell you when it's happening again. Here's the measure 1, 3, 5, and here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a Pat Martino thing. The Pat Martino thing is really, really about dividing. He does a few things. He minorizes, so he really looks at the Dorian shapes on the fretboard of every minor chord and kind of applies it to Mixolydians, and that's a strange thing. I'm not down with that. But then he does slice the neck up into those diminished chords, and that's for those situations, it's not a bad thing to do. But again, I'm just thinking about a substitution. So whenever I see either there are really 3 points, 3 types of progressions that it's like clickbait. 3 kinds of progressions jazz players struggle with. Click here for my ultimate secrets. But honestly, there are these 2 progressions that come to mind that people just play weird shit on, like Hail Mary. You know, it's like control, 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 control. And then this chord comes, and it's like, God, I've been good. Please show me the way and give me the notes to survive this harmonic twist. But you should practice the sounds that fit. So that's one of them, measure 6 in the blues. The other one is the Louis Armstrong type cadence, or the Django type cadence with flat 3 diminished, which is just an inversion of that same chord, flat 5 diminished, right? So if I'm in the key of F, like half of the gypsy jazz intros go like, or like songs like hello, Dolly, this is Louis. Dolly, now it's so nice to have you back where you belong. That thing, that diminished chord. That's the same deal. If I see that flat 3 diminished, I could always go a half step down in my key and play an arpeggio of the 7 chord, dominant. But I need to work on licks or phrases that allow me to play that 7 and resolve to the root, right? That's a B7 going to a C. And those notes, again, it's a cheat, right? You're not really you're not in the tonality playing modally using all the options, but you have something that works. Playing over changes are my weakness. I need to practice on that every day. Well, it's everybody's weakness who hasn't done it. It's hard. It's hard because it's hard. Is that the same thing about reharm, like using flat 2 major 7 instead of a 5 dominant chord? No, it's not the same thing. That's reharmonization has to do with finding with when playing over jazz means that you are taking a look at traditional structures where the counterpoint motion of the bass, what we call the chord change, which is just the bass line, is predictable. And then because it's predictable, we learn how to solo over it and memorize these relationships. And the more songs we learn, the more the situations get repetitive and the better we get. Reharmonizing things is coming up with an alternative counterpoint that also works with the melody. And that has to do with the specific notes that are in the melody. So for instance, if I'm trying to reharmonize, I don't know, pick a song, any song, pick a standard. Somebody pick a standard. When you pick a standard, I'll show you how you could do some things to it. What are three of the best places to write songs? Water towers are underrated. I don't know about that. Home is a great place to write a song. At your desk. All right, La Vie en Rose. So La Vie en Rose. So that line, the first thing is that you want to maybe come up with a thing. You want to maybe decide how much motion you're going to have when you're reharmonizing. So you could reharmonize every single note in the melody. That's kind of like what George Shearing and Bill Evans and people like that do. So, literally look for it note after note. So the first one I'm gonna right now, instead of playing, maybe it starts in a C major and has the root on top. So look for something that also has that C on top, right? So maybe start with a C first inversion. So I went C first inversion, maybe something like that. C first inversion, G sharp diminished, A minor 7, maybe. So I went C, G sharp diminished, A minor, and then D minor 7 or D minor 11 to a G 13. And then maybe here F, back to C. Right? I'm not crazy about that F, but maybe something like that could be cool. Or D flat major 7. That 2-5 also didn't sound too good to me. Maybe E minor. That's not bad. So that's C first inversion, G sharp G sharp fully diminished, A minor 7, E minor 7, A7, and then maybe D flat major 7, C. Maybe that one's a little abrupt. Maybe A flat major 7. I don't hate that. Right? But you could say maybe that's a ton of chords for that thing. Everything's kind of bouncy, so maybe every 2 notes get harmonized. Right? So that's just kind of a C first inversion, A minor, E minor 7. So but what I'm really doing is I'm changing the bass motion, finding things that also fit that same melody. That's a busy melody, so it's not as hard to do. Or so it's harder to do. Let's see. Voicings, harmonization of chords. I have to study that from a teacher here in Italy. I must study again. That's right. Get your shit together. But yeah, so when you're reharmonizing, again, you can go really, really out with it too, because as long as you find notes, right now I was really trying to keep it in the same mood. But if I take that same melody, and now this is what a lot of the pajammers that are getting famous, like Jacob Collier and people like that, are doing. They're taking a lot of these, they're creating melodic relationships with really unrelated harmony, non-functional harmony. So if I just take a look at like maybe those first couple of notes, and maybe I try to find something that has a strange relationship with that root, right? Like, what chord has that note, the first note of La Vie en Rose, as its sharp 11, right? So that would be like G flat major 7. Okay, that's my first note. Let's make that into maybe the 11th of something. Maybe not that one because it's the same chord, but maybe sharp 11 of. See that? Maybe. So now I'm coming up with these. So you see what's happening to the music. You get this, every chord starts sounding like its own galaxy, like wee blah blah blah, like these sharp turns in the harmony. So I went from a G major 7 sharp 11 to an F7 sharp 11, E flat 7 sharp 11, finding maybe two sounds here that maybe here do something like that's too harsh. So obviously you want to write it out nicely and come up with a way of playing that with great flow. If you want to get those likes, which I guess is the point of everything these days. But the mechanics of it are these. Why would you do that? No, that's a question for somebody who likes it.